right, nice job. Good set. Let's do some social kick.
I never skated.
Big time.
Do you have a skating rink in Trinidad?
We had a
Roller
bowling.
skating,
We
right?
had
That's what we're talking.
a bowling alley
Or rollerblading?
with a bowling alley.
You had
Know
a
what that
bowling
means?
alley.
Like one lane.
Yeah.
That's all. We just had one lane.
One lane.
One lane in the mall, and it was all the way in Southern Trinidad. And we went to that one lane.
How far is Southern Trinidad?
45 minutes drive from where I lived.
To get to one lane of bowling.
Correct. So how often did I bowl?
Never.
Once.
Never.
When was the last time you went bowling?
Sometime in the last 2 years.
How was it? Bougie bowling or regular bowling?
What's
Bushy bowling?
Well, I went to a roller or a bowling alley in Cupertino, and it had all these games, a full restaurant, full bar, like
Yeah.
a nice restaurant, a nice bar, all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is interesting. This is different than I remember growing up in bowling and it being, you know, the $2 pitchers.
We have our
things like
company
that.
parties at those things.
But that's what the experience that you want in bowling.
Well, agreed, but I had a good time with the other bowling too.
Oh, you like the bougie bowling?
I didn't actually I didn't bowl. I just sat there and had a few drinks, and actually I played what is it when you're sliding the metal
Yes, sliding
piece,
thing. Air hockey.
no, it wasn't air
Shuffle-
hockey.
shuffleboard?
Shuffleboard, yeah, we were playing shuffleboard.
I'd love to have that at home.
That would be a good game at home.
That would be a sweet one.
It
I
take
have-
up some space though, but
Yeah,
Do you
too.
bowl like strike, 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 and then 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, strike, 0, 0, 0? Like I'm amazing and I'm terrible and I give up. And I'm so competitive, I get upset and I just leave.
Okay, do you go
I'm that
heavy?
guy.
Or do you
Oh,
go
I-
with a light ball and a huge backswing?
Oh, dude, I can break the pins. I feel like. It's like
You didn't answer my
boom,
question.
boom, boom. I go heavy. I go
You
all
go
out.
go
heavy
heavy.
ball.
And that's why
I go light.
You go light where you just like just drop it and go.
Does there?
No, light ball.
Oh,
And chuck
I thought
it.
it meant like strength.
Am I the only one that when you hear or talk about bowling that you think about Sean Connery and in The Rock,
All I think about is Kingpin.
where he goes, "How's your bowling arm?"
What's your highest bowling game ever?
I think like 186.
And you
Maybe.
had 31.
Maybe. No, I've crossed
Actually,
100.
no, I think I've cleared 200 before. Yeah, I think I have.
I broke
but
200
not by,
once.
but not by much. Yeah,
Can you spin it all or straight as an arrow?
I mean I can, but I haven't had successful bowling as a result of spinning.
I do get bored. 10 frames. God, it's a lot. It's boring.
All right,
Those
now
are
I'm thinking
great,
about the Big Lebowski and the Jesus.
Big Lebowski's great. Great movie. But anyways, we're going to be talking about Caeleb Dressel analyzing himself in his swimming races, right?
Yeah.
So, he did what? 50 free.
53, 100 fly, 100 breaststroke, and
He did another one since 100 breaststroke?
I think he did 4.
Oh,
Alright.
which 50 free did he do?
17,
He did a
6.
17.6 one.
Oh, he did.
You need to watch that one. It's interesting because I'll give it to him. He's pretty tough on himself,
He's very
and
tough on
he's
himself.
calling himself out on stuff, saying he's got horrible breakouts when he's going 17.6 and things like that. When you're like, wow, you just went 17.6, and you think there was a lot more room to improve. Pretty wild, right?
That's hard to fathom.
But I don't know. What I'm intrigued about is, one, do we think this is going to help other swimmers, and do you think this will help his competitors?
So help other swimmers, and that's one big thing. A lot of swimmers are seeing this, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to execute what Caeleb said," because he says, make sure the fly kick, you pivot from here, and he talks about what he imagines when he's swimming breaststroke.
Yeah.
But you have to realize that takes a certain standard, a baseline standard, for you to execute those changes at. So the advice he's passing on to some of these swimmers, you have to be a certain level of swimmer to be able to execute the advice, I believe. And he does say it. He says, "Look, this is
Big
basic
time.
age group stuff." But it's an elite level advice he's giving you to make those changes, I believe. What do you think?
No, I agree, and I think he does a great job, saying that, hey, this is what I am working on. This doesn't mean this is what anyone else should work on. So he does a good job kind of prefacing it with all these different things. But I do think there are little things that a lot of swimmers can take from. One, just analyzing themselves and critiquing themselves, because a lot of swimmers aren't doing that enough or not watching film enough. I'm still shocked that so many swim teams aren't doing film review and things like that, just seeing themselves out of the water and then trying to implement it, or watching themselves directly after they're swimming. Even at elite colleges, they don't have as much video interaction as I think they would. But I don't know. I think it's fun to watch. I'm having a fun time watching it. Brian, what do you think?
Well, one of the things that struck me, that he said that he didn't really love watching his races.
Mm-hmm.
So while he's doing it now, I remember, I think it was the 100 fly where he said, I don't really love watching my races. It's not something that I like doing. I don't go back and, and I think, okay, so is that the message that he's sending? Is he promoting that this is a good behavior to do, or is he doing it because people are asking him to? And
he's bored out of his mind.
So I'm of the belief that, Luke, you were just swimming in the endless pool this week, and I think there's a ton of value in immediate feedback. And we used to train we would do starts with a camera on. It's TiVo those days. And you'd just have it on, like, I don't know what it was, maybe a minute and a half delay. And so you could do starts and then go out to the TV and watch your start and back it up and forward it. And then, then we go do another start. And just that real-time feedback, or pretty real-time feedback, I think is really helpful. And I think I think for most athletes it is helpful to watch some aspects of it. But, you have people like Caeleb who are focused on a few specific things, especially the distance of his races. There can't be more than three or four things that he's thinking about doing. The rest of them have to be completely automatic, that are an outcome of training and a lot of the prep work and all the races in season and all that stuff. That, like, all that stuff aren't things that he thinks about, and you distill it down to, these are the things that I think about. So I think that we see that in some of the review is his perspective on, okay, what are the things that Caeleb's thinking about? And that is interesting to me because, you hear, okay, well, it's details. It's start and breakout. It's, well, I was a little long on this wall. Well, lifted my head up there. I shouldn't be doing that. Stupid mistake. I always do this. I appreciate his candor.
Yeah.
And that
age group mistake.
But I think that to me is the takeaway. I think especially if I'm a young swimmer is, what is it that someone at his level is thinking about? And you can tell based on his critique what he's thinking about. It's not everything, and that's true. You can't race and think about all of the things. You just have to have most of it be, automatic. That's an outcome of practice. And then there's a few things that you can think about in the race, and you have to distill it down to those few things. It happens too fast. Especially, he's swimming 2 laps faster than, I'm swimming 1 lap, but...
Here's what you can take away from what he does too. It's how he breaks down, how he looks at his film. He always makes, and this is really good advice, that's how I did it with my athletes when I coached. You gotta watch it in real time. So he watched it in real time, he didn't comment, and then he went back and he watched it frame by frame. And you need to see that, you need to see it next to the other athletes. And also, he wasn't only harsh about himself. He did talk about when he did good stuff.
Yeah.
So he was a positive reaffirmation of what you did. And that's really important as well. So like, he always said, I'm going to maintain and keep working on what I'm good at, but I'm going to focus on what I need to work on. So he did both. And a lot of people, a lot of coaches especially, not only say, that's really bad, John, your feet splashed in, but he gave an example of how he could correct his feet splashing in. He didn't say, don't let your feet splash in. And that's something that's always like, it annoys me so much. Oh, you're not finishing your stroke. Well, that's the symptom. And you as a PT always talk about what's the cause. Why aren't you finishing your stroke? Look at your hip rotation. Exactly. Look at your extension. Look at your core instability. Right?
And I think you mentioned a huge point there is watching it in real time. Because obviously you break frame by frame. Oh, these bubbles are releasing here. This is happening. There's tons of flaws that all elite athletes do when you watch it frame by frame. But as we know, in the water, with the water that's obviously always changing and things like that, nothing is ever going to be perfect. So it's figuring out what exactly is the result that we're trying to achieve, and why did the athlete do it a certain way, and what are the things that are like glaring coming out. And that's probably the stuff that Caeleb is addressing a lot. Like you said, it's just having a few focal points and things like that. But one thing that interests me with what you were saying is that, he said that he doesn't watch his races much. Is watching your races kind of like listening to yourself talk, and that is something that really takes a lot of reflection and maturity to be able to do with some benefit?
I think that it's hard to disconnect the moment from what's happening technically.
Right.
And so so I found that watching those races, I may not only be thinking about the technical aspect of, which is the important part because you're trying to learn about how to apply it, you may have done well, what may have gone wrong, and so I would imagine that watching those types of things, you're also engaging in what was happening in the environment,
right?
And so so. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily a negative. Depends on the person.
Yeah.
But we need to take advantage of the age of technology we're in right now with immediate feedback. And you mentioned the endless pools. Those who haven't been in an endless pool, okay,
He did it. He was in an endless pool.
Who did?
You.
I know, twice. It's amazing. And what I liked about it, for many reasons, one thing is we all had the mirrors below us, right? We went to a plastic company and got a mirror flat on the line and done that. But the fact that there's a mirror below us, and also one at an angle. The one at an angle gave me a view of myself and also in our swimming fall, which was my finish. So the one flat, you definitely saw your catch and your rotation and your line, but the one in front got me my how I finished, and be able to adjust on that, and with that current at that steady rate coming by, so that's a variable that you're eliminating, right? It's a steady rate coming in, so you know that if you just make one adjustment, you're getting immediate feedback in that. That's amazing to have reduced variables. What do you think?
But, sorry, endless pool. But does an endless pool really promote swimming and how it's actually done?
I don't know. I don't.
Right? I mean, you have it's
I
different.
I haven't swum in the new ones, but personally, It's different. You're definitely correcting. I mean, if the current's not perfect, you're doing some adjustment with your body alignment to be able to stay straight. So
yes.
I think there are some positives, but it's not
one
pool
for one.
swimming exactly.
It's not one for one.
I think I felt great the next day when I went in the pool and I was able to glide through the water. I did not feel like my stroke when I was in an endless pool for sure. I didn't feel like I was, a really nice tight streamline and thin and, long and thin and stiff. I didn't feel never got that feeling of going through the water. But when I did do endless pool for 10 minutes of quality work, and I went the next day and I applied it, I felt a difference. I felt more keenly aware of my imperfections. I was paying attention, I didn't realize my catch was here and not there.
Right.
I didn't realize that my finish was...
I mean, even if it's not one for one, it could pick up on big things, right?
Right.
Even if it's not exactly the same, if you're obviously pulling out this way or you notice yourself breathing completely different, it can still provide a ton of benefit.
Yeah.
You know who just got one? Cody Miller. He got a custom one. So he put it on his vlog today.
What's a custom one mean?
Well, it's the same one
his name on the side.
That's it. His name on the side. But he's the same one that we've been trying on. That goes to 51 yards per 100 max speed.
I think that's the high performance one. That's one. I think that's top model.
But but he got one too, and he's been doing breaststroke. And I think breaststroke is the one that if your timing is off, you fall back quickly. I mean, because you can get a kick in freestyle that'll keep you maintenance and keep your speed. But if your timing is off in breaststroke, you feel it. And he was doing a really nice maintenance of his point in the pool in his breaststroke. Yeah, you should watch that.
Yeah.
I like how you're talking about breaststroke though. Being
Oh,
an expert on it all.
I'm not sure what the impact is of the water coming towards you, if that's simulating the same way that your body is moving through the water in a propulsive motion when the water is static. So I've often wondered with an endless pool if that's affecting the water that you're holding and your catch, because the water that's coming at you is already moving.
Right. There's
so you're
no
more
holding
or less
water.
propulsive, whereas when you're in a static pool, that you're putting your hand into water that's static.
Still, right? Yeah. No, it definitely does, and obviously you'll also ride higher in the water because the waves kind of coming underneath you and elevating your chest a little bit. So there's certainly elements of body position and things like that might be altered from the endless pool, maybe not in a positive way. But like you said, I think with the mirrors, the glaring issues and things like that, you certainly can pick up on some big things, especially if you're a novice swimmer.
And I talked to you guys about having the heart rate readout live in my goggles.
Plug the goggles.
Oh, because you have the foam
You
goggles.
love them.
I have the foam goggles, but I love them for that application.
Whoa, hold on a second. I gotta pause on this. The first time you said something about this, John said, you said heart rate, and he said pulse rate. What is the difference?
Heart rate is only your heart. Pulse rate is any non-heart rate that you're taking. So
Okay.
there are errors with your pulse rate compared to your heart rate and differences.
And why?
Because just the time that it takes for the blood to get there, there are different changes that do occur.
Okay, got it.
It's,
okay, sorry,
it's
carry
very
on.
accurate though. I mean, it's definitely accurate enough for swimming and things like that. But
Yeah.
technically, pulse rate versus heart rate.
So what I was using is a little sensor here on your temporal artery, which was
Good job.
I know, but which because I remember when we were in high school and you got punched here, you could go to hospital. Anyway, that's a whole nother
Trinidad.
story. Yeah, that's what
Bowling
we know
fight?
about the temporary. But
I want that one lane.
But so having your heart rate display in your goggles while you're swimming is something I've never had in my career swimming. Yours come to the wall, and in the old days we had anodes. That was very specific. Turetsky got RIP. Turetsky's sports scientist would come to our university, and he would have anodes, and anodes would measure our heart rate as accurately as he could at a time. I forgot what the anodes were attached, but he would do that. But we all do 10 seconds, right? But to have that while you're swimming, and then to have the pace change. So the endless pools, you have an app, and you can say for over a period of 5 minutes, 1 minute at 110, 1 minute at 51, 1 minute at 110 pace, 1 minute at 140 pace. So you're changing your pace when you're going. And it's wonderful it's interesting to me to see my heart rate as I'm swimming, and as my fitness is declining because I'm out of shape, see my heart rate going up, but also when I'm making adjustments, does that help me get into a balance? So having a live heart rate there, seeing, I mean, even when you're running, you run a lot and you have your watch, and you run, you can check your watch, but still, that's not, you have to do that. But to have it there when you're swimming the whole time, it really makes you think about your fitness.
It is nice, but does
good?
heart rate really matter?
I'm 46 years old.
Does it matter?
You tell me.
I think there's a
Yeah, I
very
don't know.
valid argument. Obviously, a lot is based off of heart rate training, heart rate max, all these different things. But everyone's heart rate is so variable, and if we're really trying to get more and more towards race pace or high intensity stuff,
Yep.
I'm not sure if it really matters being able to track it. I think there's a lot of better variables
Like,
in the swimming events that are important, which
Lactate?
is not even lactate. In all honesty, I mean, lactate is a misnomer on what we're really trying to track. Lactate's just one element. It's more all the other metabolic waste that we're concerned about. But obviously, when we're looking at stuff, the more lactate is usually just a predictor of the higher work you perform. That's why sprinters, what did Nathan say he got to on that
20?
freaking...
I said he got to 20.
I heard 20.
It's like 18 or 20.
Yeah, it just means he was working his butt off.
On the
That's
third of the
crazy.
That's
high.
all. That's all that showed, is that he worked his butt off, and that he has so much muscle mass he can break so much down. That's all that really shows. So I think it's more about being able to hold these paces with proper form. And yeah, perhaps these are corollaries, heart or pulse rate, as well as lactate and things like that. But I don't think it's the end all be all like a lot of the swimming
did you
community
pay attention
uses
to your
it.
run today? You did 10 miles yesterday. Your heart rate is 160 average. You paid attention to that as much? I mean, how did that feel? You paid attention?
Yeah, I think the 160, I don't know that I trust it, because that was the watch heart rate. I just got a new battery for my chest heart rate monitor, but I don't know that I trust that. But I mean, there was some hills, and that number actually surprised me. I thought it was abnormally high. Maybe that's why my training status was unproductive. But
Well, you have been going 5
That's
minute
a
miles.
good feeling. 10 miles unproductive.
I don't know why you're doing this.
But you-
Thanks, Carmen.
Unproductive.
Brian, you'll be doing 5 minute pace miles, 5:30 pace miles, and then yesterday you went 7:54 average. So maybe your watch is like, okay, what's the slackness going about?
It was hilly though. There was a lot of gain. I was straight out the gates, like straight uphill. Yeah, I mean, well, so one of the things in that I've been thinking about is it's really common in other sports to be focused on different heart rate zones.
Big time.
And I've been struggling with this in my own training for distance or triathlon, is whether or not what's the right balance to that, because I've done a lot of the low heart rate balance, like low heart rate aerobic development
Yeah, low steady state stuff.
paired with high intensity short stuff, and I'm still not sold on whether or not that produces the best result with just those elements. And so I'm curious. I feel like what you're saying is that may not really be relevant, or maybe it's not relevant for swimming.
Well, I think it depends a lot on the race and the distance and things like that. I mean, obviously, running and endurance running, like you were talking about, is way different than so many of the swimming events.
Yeah,
And I think
very.
swimming, and even more so than running or all these other endurance sports, we put in all this time training with the idea to get feel and improve our biomechanics, when biomechanics really are the number one determinant of swimming success. So being able to focus those on more than necessarily energy systems, training zones, and all that would be huge. And that's where the endless pool could be huge if it can improve technical elements, or, TiVo. We had TiVo at Purdue, and it was huge, right? I mean, it gives you as close as you can to instantaneous feedback, but the swimming world is still so far behind on actually having instantaneous feedback. And we talked about having some audio stuff while you're swimming at the endless pool, and there are things like that, but that's still so far from being common. Even video in TiVo is so far from being common on pool decks, and I think that's one reason why young swimmers are getting better, is that they're watching more swimming because it's on YouTube. You're watching 1976 Olympics, the whole prelims race of 1980s, right? You can just watch it more, so you see more swimming, and that can really, I think, help swimmers build synapses on what is proper in the pool.
How come synchro, in synchro you get the underwater speakers and the synchro coaches talk and play the music and talk to the swimmers?
Don't go where you're going. I know where you're going.
Would that be
don't say
cool
it.
but annoying?
What would Marsh be telling you underwater?
I had a nightmare at Christmas training one year this actually happened where Marsh is up in, I don't know where he went. It's where Indian River is, like one of the top community colleges there was. We're in Florida at Christmas training, and there's a microphone and speakers up in the tower. So there's a room that's on a second story. It's like a press box, and David's up in the press box with a hot mic, barking out to different people in the pool, and he could see the whole pool. And I was just going, man, that was just a flash forward to the day that we all had an earpiece, and I felt like a NASCAR driver. Somebody telling me, or in the Tour de France, when to make a move.
How annoying is...
I don't like it at all.
Swim practice during synchro practice, when you're swimming up and down doing a set of 200s and you're hearing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the same song going over and over again.
I've only been around it a handful of times in my life because we didn't have a synchro team most of my places.
So John, what about if the endless pool could be used on a science basis? So Bryan, you've been doing a lot of testing on cycling. When you talk about that, and in track, we go on a treadmill and we've done VO2 max sets. We hooked up our oxygen and you judge your oxygen. What if the endless pool could be adapted to have a snorkel and judge your oxygen in and out, and we do a similar test to what you're doing in cycling?
They can. That's how they
do it in
swimming.
Yeah,
they do those types of things.
So
VO2 max test, where it's not always an endless pool because research is skeptical if endless pool is really applicable to real swimming.
Interesting.
But it's in a cart and it moves next to you in the pool as you do incremental speed tests and things like that, similar to like a VO2 test on a bike and things like that. But remember, VO2 max tests are very specific to the activity you're doing, right? So if you were to try, a lot of swimmers would be like, oh, I want to get a VO2 max test. I'm going to go do it on a bike, do it running. It's not accurate if you're doing it in a different activity.
We just did 10 300s and 430, and we had that's what we did.
Swimming?
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, 10 300s and 430, or
Not
6
race
300s, like equal work to rest ratio. That's what we did. But your biking, you did a FTP? What did you, sorry, what was the test you did?
Well, it was a percentage of FTP, but what we were trying to test was supporting a test trying to figure out what the impact of body position is on FTP. So we were testing being in a neutral body position, which is my biomechanical fit, which is my race position on a bike, and then testing the impact where I go above baseline, what's the impact on FTP, and then go below baseline. So, yeah.
You want to tell everyone what FTP is?
Oh, well, you might be able to explain it better than I can.
You'll get it, man.
File transfer protocol. It's in Silicon Valley.
Oh, it stands for functional threshold power, which is one of the main markers for cyclists to understand how their, training and fitness is progressing. So it's just kind of the standard baseline for yourself about how your fitness is progressing. So basically what it means is functional threshold power is about what's the highest level of power that you can hold for 1 hour.
For road cyclists who are doing like road events, not for the sprinters and track, obviously, just for the road cyclists.
Well, yeah, I don't
do it
think
adapted.
that I don't think the track sprinters maybe use FTP just because I doubt that it's as useful. But because their races are so short. I mean, it depends, of course. There's the most probably famous track races, the hour record.
Yep.
Just how far can you ride in an hour?
It's a great movie on that.
But
Flying Scotsman, I think.
I don't know track sprinting well, but I would guess that it's not as important to them. Who knows? Maybe they're like traditional swimming where, you've got, we were talking to Gary Hall about, these sprinters that are, training
15 grand a
out here
workout.
doing tons of yardage, and does that really apply? So, and we haven't fully made it out of that model.
Yeah.
It's progressing in the right direction, I think, but
Well, what's the work that Caeleb's, going back to Caeleb, what kind of work, he's putting in some serious work in his program. What's the work he's doing to be able to, skins are not a problem for him? And he can go 17.6 and he can go 139. I mean, what kind of work he's doing to have that range?
it's a freak.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously he comes from a more volume program with Troy. I mean, I don't know Caeleb's specific in-pool training. I know more about his on-land training.
Talk about that with Matt.
Yeah, Delancey, he's been on a few calls, and I mean, he'll tell me he's outlifting or outperforming a lot of the track athletes, where
Is
the
that
swimmers
surprising?
are usually fractional compared to the Florida track
Oh, really?
athletes, because they are one of the best track programs in the NCAA. So that's amazing on itself, and to have that type of athlete within the sport of swimming, I think that's the great aspect about Caeleb, and I'm happy to watch it in action, because like you said, seeing people go 17.6 and these things where we didn't think were even possible not long ago.
Is that what he does well? How does he go 17.6? Is it because he has that power off the starts, his technique, he can hold that water, he can do 3 strokes in a 25-yard breaststroke off the dive? What does he do well? He just can power and application of the
Power's
power
a
in the
huge
water?
part. I mean, I believe he's got a 45+ inch vertical, and I think it's very visible on the start, where he critiques his start on all these races, and where does he pop up? Half a body.
Well,
ahead
where
of
does he
the
enter
rest.
the water?
He talks about
So,
entry.
I mean, he enters the water almost at the flags.
Yeah,
And
just
so cleanly as well. That's his thing.
Yeah, and he pointed that out in one of the races
he
that
did.
I watched. Is he said, "Oh, this person also had a pretty good start." He
Oh.
wasn't looking at the reaction time; he's looking at where they entered the
Big time.
water.
and also the splash and,
A little
and the
bit of
entry
that,
angle,
yeah.
right?
Oh, it's
but-
hip-
But definitely
it's
the
hips
distance,
as well.
and his distance off the block
His
is
distance off
nuts.
the block is otherworldly.
right. I mean, it's huge.
That's a huge piece of it. He's got speed and quickness. He's got power. He's got explosive power. I think that I've often said that, do we know that Phelps was the best swimmer ever, or is it just that LeBron didn't swim?
Yeah.
So I feel like with Caeleb, you're getting an athlete who is participating in swimming, and for sure there's a great merging of his talent applied to something that is in his wheelhouse, and it fits his personality, his training style, and his all these things. Like the roads converged
But
in a good
also-
way that it's resulted in what Caleb's output is as an elite swimmer. But I think that it's introducing this idea that athleticism outside of the pool, general athleticism as an adolescent, is a positive indicator for your ability to participate and I guess achieve at a high level, and it I think that we'll see more of that come into swimming, and less so of the traditional model of pounding out yardage and being less in tune with your body and your physique, and
It's
being,
more to
being a
Caeleb.
good athlete on land.
But so I read an article today. The great North Thornton said that 90% of swimming is mental. So why do we only work on 10% of the swimmer? Right. So North was talking about we need to work on the mental side, mental health. We've been talking about a lot.
Well, I thought Yogi Berra said that the other half was physical. 90%'s mental and the other half is physical.
Yeah.
So
But-
does he disagree with Nort?
Well,
Or is one just
Yogi
better
could
at
catch a
percentages?
fastball pretty well. Nord could produce them.
What was Yogi catching fastballs?
Wasn't he the catcher for the Yankees?
He was.
Yeah.
That's messing
Gosh,
with you.
knowledge for Trini.
I was
Boom.
impressed that you knew something about baseball.
Because I watched the movie. But Caeleb is a mature guy. You can see he's
Yeah.
mature, a young guy, and he's had a really good environment to be around. I mean,
Yeah.
right now he's with some really good stuff, and that helps a lot, right? To have that attitude at a young age still. Caeleb's what, 23 maybe? How old is he?
Oh, probably. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
Maybe
think
a little older,
But that has a lot
yeah,
to do with it, right?
around
The
there,
ready
which
room.
is very true. I mean, he's very mature, I think, for his years in the sport, and especially compared to some of the past athletes that have come through. So he certainly is showing that maturity and reaping some of the benefit of it.
Only one Olympics he's had. He cried when he won his first gold medal. He was so moved. I mean, the rules.
Crazy.
I
But
would.
Anyway, should we go get some pizza?
Let's do it.
all right.
Let's go get some pizza. Nice.